How did you get hooked up on your Christmas?
How
was your Christmas?
My Christmas was phenomenal. I had a little bit of an overeating attack where my food
attacked you.
Attacked
Your
me.
food attacked you.
It was a you think you're in charge here, friend? You're not.
Yeah.
The food said
like you had like some stomach issues.
Oh, so yeah.
Whoa.
But it was all self-inflicted. It was like I'm gonna have that fifth piece of pie and just knock it out, and then wow.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
You're listening to a local church podcast hosted by my dad, Pastor Ryan Markham. Be sure to leave a review and share this resource. Love God, love people, make disciples.
So,
whoa.
Yeah, you had a lot of food.
I ate a lot of food
over the break.
But
it's Christmas.
It is Christmas, and I rationalized it
the
that
holidays.
way. I really did. It's like Disney money, right? It doesn't really count, and all the calories.
How dare you?
All the calories that I ate for Christmas and for it's gone on since Thanksgiving. I mean, really.
No, you on the podcast you said several, I think 4 or 5 ago, like, hey, I'm not doing this anymore.
I said I'm not
living
doing,
life.
Yeah, keto.
Getting all fat and sassy.
Here I am, world. I have arrived at fat and sassy.
No, that's awesome. That's good.
But
you have to deal with the consequences.
There are consequences.
Yeah.
I had a sit-down meeting with my family where I was like, okay, fam, I'm growing sideways. Wow. And this isn't going to work for me, so I've got to make some changes, and I don't want to do it alone in 2023. We talked, I think, the last time we were here, which was, 2 months ago?
It was 2 weeks ago. Sorry, guys. I got COVID again, which knocked me out of even preaching. And then the week after that, we didn't do a podcast. It's just kind of sad. So.
I know. It's been a long time. But however, the very last time we talked, I mentioned, or maybe it was the last, recently, I mentioned resolutions. We talked about them.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to add to my resolutions. Because you warned me, Ryan, Allan, don't put it out there into existence.
Yeah, you put it out in the world and you got to do it. But here's the thing. Statistically speaking, most people, 80% of the people don't get past 2 weeks.
I know.
And then it's like, you're going to be successful for 14 days. And then after that,
And here's my thing, my problem with that.
80%.
Personally. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
I'll hit day 15 and think, I just beat 80% of people. So that's good enough. I'm better than 80% of people.
Yeah.
I know,
No, I was thinking about this last night, actually, in the shower. That's where I do most of my thinking. But it was like, what was it? It was very deep, and I can't remember it. No, it was most psychosemantic, people will tell you have to set goals to be successful. Now, here's what I want to say. I call no on that.
Okay.
All right. So a lot of people say I've got to do a 14-day goal or a 30-day goal, and I got to hit those, and as long as I hit these little increments, then I'll be successful.
Right.
Emma, my daughter, who's a junior in high school, did an interview. She interviewed me on what is success, and I boiled it down to this. And I don't know if this is smart or if this is just me trying to be cool, but this is what I'm going to go with for the rest of my life, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is feels like a moment.
It was a moment for me as she was interviewing me. It was my daughter, a 16-year-old girl asking her dad, what is success? So in my mind, it's almost like, are you proud of me, Dad? What is going to make you proud? It was a moment for me.
Okay, lay it on me.
Every human being that is in existence has been created in the image of God. There is a God DNA, right? There's a God, substance to humanity.
Okay.
Male and female, both. With that comes along with talents, giftedness, spiritual gifts, all that kind of thing. My idea of success has changed drastically since this interview.
All right.
If you use those God-given talents, abilities, and giftedness to serve Him and to love others, that is success. No matter what the world says on Is your finances, going to be great?
Right.
Is your popularity great? Right. Your reputation, all that kind of stuff. Success isn't what the world tells you success is.
Yeah.
Success is, am I doing that which God has given me the ability to do? Right. And I want to mention one of the resolutions from Jonathan Edwards again that we did before, but
right.
I think that's where success lies. Now, people are going to say, well, how do you equate success? How do you evaluate it? Right.
Okay. Measure. How do you measure success?
I told you I'm not smart. Right. The measurement isn't in, again, the measurement isn't in those little 15-day goals, those 20-day goals. It's, am I using what God has given me to serve Him and to love others, right? I mean, I think that's
the measure.
I think that's the measure for me. Yeah. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, man, this guy's nuts.
I don't think it's nuts. I think that just for,
and I want to go back. Sorry, I'm going to catch up because a 16-year-old girl is asking her dad, like,
yeah,
what is success? Is it a paycheck? Like, am I going to go to college to get the most money I can possibly get? But then you see people who have done that and are regret, like, I've missed out on a lot of life because I've been chasing after this paycheck. I thought this paycheck was going to be success, right?
I think this boils down to the difference between what, the human definition of success and like maybe the godly definition of success. Like,
wait, I want to stop you there because I'm going to challenge you on that.
Okay.
You say what you just said.
I think it boils human definition of success and then the godly definition of success.
Yeah.
I think that the godly definition of success is what you're talking about, where it's like, I've given you these talents. Are you using them to benefit me, to bring me glory? That's what I mean by that. Not that we have to live up to some measure for God. I think it's,
sure.
Like He's keeping score, but I mean, like, can you identify success in that realm versus the human realm, which is very much about statistics and, from a church standpoint, even butts in the seat and, how many dollars have you brought in, for your offering and those kinds of things. Not that I have any qualms with what you're saying, but I do think that there is some value in having a measurement and having a benchmark. And the genesis of this entire conversation was, setting goals for yourself and trying to reach those goals. So, the argument against setting goals and having a benchmark that you're shooting for, I don't think necessarily the antithesis of that argument is I'm just going to rest in the fact that I'm serving God.
But I think that's where the freedom is for me right now. Yeah. In my life at 45 years old, just turned 45. Like when you separate human goal or human idea of success and then godly idea of success, I think you're doing a disservice to the idea of what success is, right? So, and not saying anything against you, but I'm
no, I get it. I don't take it personally.
I saw a video and it was from like the 1980s or something, and a guy was like complains like, we pay sports, athletes $2 million, $6 million a year because it's taking our mind off what's really important. Now, is sports really important?
Definitely not.
In the grand scheme of things, no, right? Is my paycheck right now really that important in the grand scheme of things? No. Now, does it help me pay my bills? Sure. Right. And so the idea of success, if you just let's say secular, not human, right?
Okay.
I would say secular.
Yeah, that's better.
Is these goals, these attainable things? All the leadership books say you got to have attainable goals to meet your or attainable steps to meet your goal, right? Whatever. If we do that with godliness, or if we do that with,
spiritual things,
what being a human is all about, right?
Yeah.
Am I using the gifts, talents? Am I being the person that God has called me to be? And if I'm not going to ever be successful, right?
Yes.
And now this is a metaphysical argument, or for me, it's transcends more than just what I see in front of me right now, right?
Right.
So, for me to be a successful pastor, how many people are showing up, right? What's our offering look like?
Yep.
What is our sermons? Are they good? Are they applicable? Things like that. Those are measurable, right?
Right.
But I'm going past that, and I don't know. I haven't transcended anything. But I'm saying that moving forward, my idea of success is, am I doing all that I can with what God has given me? And if I'm doing that, I'm successful. No matter what anyone else says, like, about Pastor Ryan, does Pastor Ryan, in his heart of hearts, with
Right.
integrity, say, I'm doing everything I can that God has given me to do?
I like the word.
That's where I'm at.
I like the
Because
word integrity.
Yeah, I want to move past that secular idea of what success is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's for me.
I agree, and I think that your definition allows you to put your head down on the pillow at night and say, I've run the race.
Yeah, I mean, each night I should ask I think all Christians should, am I using what God has given me to love Him or to serve Him and to love others, right?
And to bring Him glory.
Yeah.
I think that's a great.
Now, is it measurable?
Right.
Right? So that's the other thing.
But should it be measurable?
Well, for yes, I think yes. For me, right, as a pastor or as a believer, as a follower of Christ, when I wake up each day, am I selfish,
Right.
or am I serving Him?
I agree.
Right? I can measure that, and at the end of the day, if I'm honest with myself, I can say, "Bro, you're missing the mark here." Right?
Yep.
Now, not that God is keeping tabs, but that my heart should be moved, right? Sorrowful when I don't serve and love God and love others, right? But in our world, that's not the idea of success. The idea of success is, what does my paycheck look like? What does my house look like? What does my car look like? That kind of thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I've fallen into that, right?
I know.
And so, yeah.
So maybe, full circle, come back around. We started talking about resolutions and those kinds of things. Maybe we shouldn't, define our success
with the rubric of secular culture, right?
Right.
Culture doesn't get to define what I believe, my faith, right? It doesn't get to define me.
True. I don't think there's anything necessarily, and I don't think you're making this argument, but I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with setting goals for yourself that are measurable.
If you're
and
younger,
achievable.
you've got to set goals to get out of high school, things like all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Pastor Ryan has moved past. I don't have to worry about school, right? I don't have to worry about grades. Right. Now I am working on a master's still, right? But here, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older. I'm not going to be defined by what people say about Pastor Ryan, right? Does that make sense?
No, totally.
My idea of success, and this all came about from an interview for a school project. Right. My idea of success is, are you using what God has given you for His glory and serving others, right? That's it. You can measure that, I think.
I think so, too. And if we're looking only at success, your definition is fine. I'm just talking about, I guess my head's going toward leadership, toward maybe just the stuff, and I don't want to define that as success. I
think mine is more broad, right? Mm-hmm. It is broad.
Yeah.
But I think following Christ for me at this point in my life is a lifestyle. It's what should define me, right?
Totally agree.
That's where I'm headed this year.
And I'm not
2023.
I know, and I feel like each time that it comes back to me, I'm like, yeah, but, and that's not what I'm saying. No. I'm not saying yeah, but. I'm just simply saying that to set a goal for myself.
Yeah.
In any facet of life, whether it's my weight or the number of books I read in a year or exercise, whatever. I don't think any of that is in refute to your definition of success. I think it can walk side by side.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can have goals for life, right?
Right.
So each day you wake up, brush your teeth. That's a goal.
Yeah.
I'm going to brush my teeth twice a day, 3 times a day, whatever. Those are goals, yeah. Do it for the glory of God, right? Do it with the abilities that you've given. Now, I want to go back just before we move on, and unless you have some more to kind of add to this. I'm going to go back to the Jonathan Edwards resolution, right? Because I think it's just as broad as what kind of I've defined. Now, you can listen to this podcast and just say, Pastor Ryan's a loony, and I like Ryan's idea, whatever. This is Pastor Ryan is for me, right? This is where I'm headed.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Edwards, his first resolution of 70 that he's written over his years was this: I will do whatever I think be most to God's glory and my own good, profit and pleasure for as long as I live. That's the first one. Yeah. Do everything I can for the glory of God, and then what benefits me. But you can also say what helps others or serves others, loves others, right? That kind of thing. That's where I'm headed. 2023, man.
I like it.
But with that, we have some end of the year podcast stats. Right? We went really deep, really early, and we probably shouldn't have went that deep early.
Okay.
That was my fault.
It's all right.
However, well, there's some podcast stats. Unless you want to wrap it up from your side. And
I
then we'll jump
don't.
into
I
some
don't.
stats.
I mean, I feel like we just said stats aren't important, and now we're moving into stats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no. I do not gauge this on how successful we are as
A podcast?
a local church podcast, because I was blown away by some of these.
Yeah.
Because this is from Spotify, right?
So, okay. So let's just clarify for the dear listener. You are not defining yourself by the world's definition of success.
Yeah, I mean, so
however,
and people were like, "Well, that's not fair. Everybody else does." No, I'm removing myself from the cultural definition of what success is. Right? You can do that with your life,
but you are not saying that cultural definitions of achievement or whatever are bad.
I don't think they're important.
Well, then why are we doing this next segment?
Yeah, so because we wanted to wrap the end of the year with like, here's some things that came out, and you'll understand what these stats are when we say it, because there's nothing to do with success on these stats.
Oh,
it's like, here's some information about your podcast that we thought was interesting. Now, this is from Spotify. This is not from us.
I know.
This is from Spotify, right?
I maybe sinfully, I find a little bit of pride in this. I know you're saying you don't, but I think it's kind of cool.
No, it's very interesting, the numbers, because I was like, where did Spotify, and because I was like, some dude in his basement's doing this. Spotify is putting this is theirs, right?
Go for it.
And so I'm going to jump in. I think I can pause it, because I'm going to read some stats as we go, and then we can pause and then talk about it. The first one that comes up.
Oh, it's like a reel?
It's like a slide thing.
Okay, gotcha.
So in 2022, you did your thing. The people loved it, is what they said. That's the very first slide, right? So that starts to like get the heart pump, like, hey, I feel good about myself.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So that's slide number 1. Number 2 is coming in, and it says that there's a lot of cool, fancy transitions that is still going on.
Okay.
Here it is. You created 1,384 minutes of new content. Now, that's cool in itself. 1,384 minutes. Let's say 1,400 minutes.
Okay.
Of new content. That's us, right?
Right. That we have put out into the world.
Here's what I thought was like crazy.
Yeah.
That's more than 84% of other creators in the religion and spirituality category.
So just quantity.
We're
cranking it out.
84% more than other creators in our category.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what other Christian podcasts are under. Right. It ain't under religion and spirituality.
Sure. I mean, maybe there are.
I would say
for every one of us, there are 8 people who were like, I'm going to start a podcast, and then they just stopped, and so their content creation is 30 minutes, and they just do their thing.
So this first one, it's not a measure of success. It's just like, here's what we've observed.
Yeah,
your 1,400 minutes of new content is 84% more than other religion and spirituality categories. So I want to know what other if you're listening to other podcasts, email us alocalchurchpodcast@gmail.com and see what category they're under. What are they potting under? Potting?
Wow. Casting?
What are they casting under? What are they recording on? Like, what is their topic?
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure it's not under what we're under.
Gotcha.
I would say.
So we are. I mean, if you go to religion and spirituality,
if you go to Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, whatever you listen to your podcasts on, the religion and spirituality category, that's us.
We're under religion and spirituality, and so 13%, well, 16% of whoever's under that category makes more content than us.
Yeah.
But
that's not a lot.
I agree.
So we're cranking it out.
Right.
So,
but there has to be other podcasts that are doing more than us. And I mean, 16% doesn't seem like there's that many. So your question is,
what's the category?
Yeah. Are they, do they define themselves as entertainment?
Yeah.
Is that a category?
Yeah.
There's
I think that could be. There's a lot.
Self-help. I know
comedy
is
yeah.
Well, yeah, but nobody's going to, maybe. We can put ourselves under comedy.
We're
pretty funny, Ryan.
That's the first slide, right?
Okay.
Not really measure success, just like, hey, here's what you're doing, and it's beating out this other percentage, right? So 84%, we're making more content.
Okay.
Just on the podcast. Next slide. Here we go. More transitions.
Yeah.
It's
I
nice.
I would say that anyone who was looking for us in the past 2 weeks would disagree with that statement.
Oh, because we messed up.
Been
we
silent.
Skipped a week.
Yes, we have been silent.
Okay. One of the episodes that really grabbed your listeners' attention. Can you guess your number one? It gives us 3 podcasts.
3 options?
Yeah, to guess from. Number 49, Truth in Times of Chaos. That was the title
Okay.
of number 49. Number 50, Opening Day Shenanigans.
Yes.
And number 57, Denominations, Who's Right?
Huh.
Which podcast do you think grabbed the most listeners' attention?
Well, I
One
joined.
is from March,
Uh-huh.
April, and then May in that sequence.
I joined the podcast sporadically in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I was only on it a couple times. And
You
then-
were on the Opening Day Shenanigans.
That's the one
Yeah.
I'm guessing
All right,
because I was on it.
So I'm going to pick it just because that's your guess.
That's my
right?
guess. Yeah.
I think I've already seen it, so I can't.
Oh.
I can't.
Okay.
So I'm going to pick number 50. He said, "Nice try."
Oh,
Try again. right?
darn. Okay, well, then I'm going to go with denominationalism. That
Right.
seems like one that
Denomination? Who's
if
right?
nobody were listening to us and they were just found our podcast, and that would be a hot button. Like, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna check that one.
Yeah.
out.
Here we go. Click. Nice. Try again.
Oh,
And
so it was.
is Truth in Times of Chaos.
I like it.
And so I'm going to click it. It's going to do some more transitions.
Fancy transition. Nobody.
191% more streams than your average episode on
Wow.
that one episode. Truth
Yeah.
in Times of Chaos. Number 49. If you're listening, go back and listen to number 49 because apparently it was popular.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder. Like your mom must have listened to that 16 times.
That's good.
Yeah.
Next transition. There's some more.
Do you recall what that one was about? I know we're moving forward.
There's a lot. So the Times of Chaos. It was 2022.
Right.
It was April, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what was going on around April. It could have been a lot about the Bible, like is what's
Sure.
true, things like that. I would say because that's kind of what our podcast is about. But yeah, go back and listen to it. Number 49.
Okay. Sorry.
The next slide says your podcast loves to travel, and it's got a globe spinning around, and it's going to tell us, I guess, the listenership of where that's from. Your top country was, you guessed it,
United States.
United States.
But we are worldwide.
We are. I think the next in line, I want to say Germany is next. There's like 16 different countries but now again, with that, it could be VPN thing, right? So
Sure.
like if you turn on your VPN, you can make yourself look like you're in Mexico and still listen to the podcast, and I think it would pick it up, right?
So not a measure of success, just an interesting fact.
Of just like, where are people listening?
So 59% of our listeners. Is that what you said? 59?
No, that's the next.
Oh,
that's
I looked on
next
your
thing.
screen there. So a majority of our listeners are in America.
Yeah. So
Got it.
somewhere between May 22 and May 28, 59% more listeners.
We just went straight up.
Yeah.
We just had a big giant
We
jump.
jumped.
Is that when I joined?
Could be. I would say
I think not.
that's your measure of success right there. It's like when you join this podcast, it went up. What are your local podcast listeners like?
What
I
do
guess
they
this
like?
is this is gender maybe and age.
They're good people. They're common
It's
folk.
calculating listeners' personalities, which I don't know how it does that.
Yeah, I subscribe to this. How does it even know what kind of person I am? I don't know that I.
Yeah. All right. It says
'cause it
this.
listens to
Your listener's personality or podcast personality is the time traveler. Your fans are audio time travelers. They seek out podcasts that are new to them, regardless of whether they're new to the rest of the world. So I guess we've had a lot of first-time listeners,
Got
I
it.
would say, because that's why they're time travelers. I don't like that. That's a weird thing to even...
Yeah. not
Maybe
a
they're
fan
just
of
like, your podcast not very good. Let's give them something.
it. Could
your
be
listeners
that.
are
Thanks,
time travelers.
Spotify.
We did do a video podcast, which you could go on anchor.fm
Yeah.
and look
I've
at one of
seen
those.
that one.
There's one that's like a video.
Was it like an experiment?
Yes,
We're trying
it was
it out
from my
kind of thing.
phone.
There you go.
I think that's
That's it?
kind of the big. Those are
So the
really-
quantity,
really the
we're
first one.
cranking it out. Yeah.
really
like-
the first one. 84% more than other content creators.
I don't.
Oh,
really-
here we go. This one's good. This one's good.
Oh,
This is
okay.
what I want to get to. This is it. Then we'll move on from this.
Okay.
Your podcast saw lots of gains. So it says your podcast working out, right?
Yeah,
We're seeing
all right.
some gains.
Showing the gains.
Hours, 669% more hours this year than last year.
Of listen
Of
that it's been listened to.
sure, I don't know. It doesn't specify.
Up
I would say-
669%.
So from the years past, not many listeners.
yeah.
I know who you are if you're listening. We know exactly who
That's
you are.
right. Yeah.
So thank you. The second thing on this is 336% more streams than last year. So people are actually listening. They're streaming our content.
300% is
our
big.
followers have gone up 150%.
You know, that's not a measure of success, but
I don't know where you can either follow on Apple, right? Spotify. You can follow it. Subscribe, I guess. Yeah.
So, and this is only Spotify.
Yeah, this is just from Spotify. Well, sure. I would say yes.
So there could be even more than that.
Yeah. If you're listening on Spotify, why? Go to Apple. Stop the Android stuff and just go to Apple and listen to it there. That's where I listen to it.
I listen to my podcast on Apple, but I listen to Spotify not for podcasts but for music.
Yeah, but that's 150% more followers than last year.
Yeah.
And then 50% more listeners.
Okay.
That's the last category, I would say. So those are some pretty cool stats.
Yeah.
So this
the trend line is
we're
pointing
moving up. Yeah.
Yeah.
This last year was fairly good. In the podcast world.
I Googled or searched online somehow or another. There is another podcast called Local Church.
There are a bunch called The Local Church and Local Church. Right?
Yeah, I found one of those.
I got an idea.
Okay.
For a podcast name moving in the forward. No, we're not going to change it anytime soon, but Bible Talk.
Okay.
Church Talk.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. But I like a local church podcast.
What was the Dana Carvey church lady?
Church lady. Yes,
church
it was.
talk.
It was church lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is. So here's the audience. I'm just going to run down, and then we'll jump to the next agenda thing. 95% of our listeners are United States. Right?
Okay. 95.
4% Germany. That is number 2.
There you go. You nailed it.
1% Canada, and then India, Sweden, El Salvador, France, Philippines, Afghanistan. Those are the ones that are listed. Australia, Zambia, United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, and Singapore. All those are 1% or less.
Okay. So it's just like some bot out there that
could be, or
it.
VPN.
Yeah.
A VPN could be.
It.
60% listen on Apple Podcasts.
Wow. And so you just hurt the feelings of 40% of our listeners.
21% from the web browser, which I'm not sure what that means. 7% of Spotify.
Yeah. But
Amazon Alexa, 4%. That's you, probably.
That is me. I do. That's awesome. When we put them out, I tell my Alexa to put it on.
So just from Spotify, the average age is 17 and under.
What?
That's just Spotify numbers on there.
So that's our children.
Yeah, Spotify, gender, male 80%, female 20%.
Whoa. Hey. I don't care what the numbers say.
Yeah, so
that's not our definition.
That's our year-end stats, right? And so we're moving in the right direction. We're creating content, even though we skipped a week.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to, whatever platform, like, share, subscribe. Review it.
I like the share part.
Reviewing helps us bump up in the listening,
so people can find
see
us.
It. Yeah. The algorithms and all that stuff. So Happy New Year.
It is.
We're moving into the Happy New Year. We talked about
for quite a bit.
Resolutions and all that stuff.
Yeah, it is. We are days away from 2023.
Yes. There's a couple things I want to mention, local church-wise, and then I want to get into some things that you found.
Sure.
The first thing is Mount Moriah Baptist Church. We're centrally located between Shelby County, Spencer County, Anderson County. We'd love to have you visit. Check out our website, www.mmbcky.org.
And if you're our listener in the Philippines, it's okay if you can't make it.
Yeah, I mean, we understand we can't visit, but we do stream online.
We do.
On Facebook. You
Send
can check
us
us out.
an email. Let us know you're there.
MMBCKY community is the hashtag or how you find us on Facebook. Right?
Yeah.
So on our page.
Our podcast is alocalpodcast@gmail.com. Right?
A local church podcast at gmail.com. Yeah, that's our email. Yeah. All one word. A local church podcast. We have a Bible reading plan.
Yes.
For this year, for 2023.
How did you? I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I want to know your. I know you don't measure yourself by human standards of success, but how did you do this year? Like, what's your take on your Bible reading?
I would say having a plan helps a lot, right?
Yeah.
Even someone on Facebook recently was like, "How do I get into reading my Bible? How do I stay consistent?" Things like that.
Sure.
I said have a plan, right?
Yep.
So we use the McShane. I typically use the McShane reading plan or I use a thing called the Psalms, right? I read the Psalms. Each month I start over at 1, Psalm 1, and go through Psalm.
So I know you and I know, but for somebody who may just be, who hasn't gone to our resources website or whatever, what is the McShane?
So if you go to the mmbcky.org Bible reading plan, page, the McShane reading plan's there. It is 4 chapters a day for a year, and you'll go through the entire Bible in 1 year. McShane is
not just the entire Bible in 1 year. You do the New Testament twice and the Psalms and Proverbs.
Proverbs twice.
Yeah. And the Old Testament once.
Yeah. McShane, old pastor, theologian from 1600s, I believe.
Yeah.
And he came up with a plan. He's like, I want to be in the Bible more. My measure is I never get through the McShane reading plan.
Yeah.
There's always a gap in between different months. I go back to the Psalms. And so I don't ever finish it completely. I didn't this year.
Yeah.
How about you?
I did not. I did not finish it this year, and it was my goal.
It was a big gap. I think it was like summertime. It kind of like
that's interesting.
Kind of went weird.
Mine was the latter part, the fourth quarter of the game. I lost my dad this year, and really, my life got out of balance in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
And ashamedly, I say, my consistency in reading the Bible, kind of fell apart. Not fell apart, but was more inconsistent.
It was interrupted.
It was. I had a pretty good rhythm for the first part of the year. I was on pace.
Yeah.
And then on pace with following the McShane study. And, toward the latter part of the year, I can see now I'm not going to make it. So,
you can catch up. Somebody posted like 6 days on Facebook. I forgot. I know it's on Twitter. It's like, hey, if you're following the McShane read, because most Reformed conservative Christians follow McShane if they do a reading plan. And like, you got 6 more days, and he outlined 6 days of how to catch up and complete it. It was funny, but it was good. But were you finished? Sorry.
I read the entire New Testament a couple times, not twice. I read the entire New Testament once, read all the Psalms, read all the Proverbs, and it was the Old Testament that I kind of bogged down in the prophet part toward the end. So you and I were chatting about this off air a couple days ago. I have a new thought that I'm going to do this year, and I think you've already put the resource online, so it's there if you're interested in it. I really like the idea of, if I'm going to read, say, for example, in 1 Samuel, the adventures of what's happening with Israel, and they want a king, and then we get into you follow that story through David, and there's so much of David's reign and his kingdom that is such a huge part of that Old Testament. And then you go read the Psalms, and they're separate. It's a lot of the Psalms are David's mindset as he's going through his life, right? I like the idea of weaving that into the narrative story.
Yeah, chronological.
So chronological is how most folks refer to that. And so, you read either David's psalm that he writes before he goes into battle, or the psalm he writes in response to, the sin he's committed, or whatever it may be, as you're reading the narrative. That seems really interesting to me.
I don't know if there's any resource exactly like that. I think we could put that together and I think promote that. That would be really cool. What we're going to go with is the Blue Letter.
Yep. It's close.
Blue Letter plan. It's a 1-year chronological plan. Genesis going through Revelation. It'll be on Mount Moriah Baptist Church, mmbcky.org, Bible reading plan, that page. What was I going to say about it? There was something else I was going to say about it.
I think at one time go ahead. No, you go.
No, there's with any Bible reading plan, right? Most people say, find a devotional and go that way. I would say steer clear of devotionals if you're looking to read the Bible, right? Devotionals are a pastor or a theologian, somebody in their own private, personal time had some thoughts, they wrote it down. That was with them and God, right?
Yep.
And I want to stress that, because you can write your own devotional through daily reading the Bible, right?
You put out you for our church a really cool resource that was available. I think you bought books for the church or something like that. That was called "Pray Through the Bible."
Yes,
that I read this year, and it was a really neat resource that stressed what you're talking about right now. It was, there is there's a way that you can read Scripture and pray about it and basically make your own devotional.
Yeah, you can do your, and I'm going to get into one of the resources I'm going to talk about at the end, but I would say three things. One, find a Bible reading plan, right? Yeah. Whether it's 1 year in the Bible, whether it's 2 years, whether it's a 5-year Bible reading, right? Find a plan that you can have and you can mark and see where you are, right?
Yep.
That would be the first thing. The second thing is be consistent. So whatever day you're going to be reading, whatever time of day you're going to read the Bible, do that each day. Don't skip around. Don't do one night, one morning, one afternoon.
True.
You're not gonna stick with it, right?
That's where I fell apart. Yeah.
So if it's in the morning, do it every morning, same time, and just stick with it. And the third thing I would say is have a notebook and a pencil beside you. When you come up across any questions, anything that's like, I don't know what this means, I don't know what this word means, write it down, and then do some research, throughout the day on what that actually is. And with the amount of information that's on the internet now, you can find this information. Talk to your pastor, talk to your life group leader, your Sunday school leader, that kind of thing. I would say, and then lastly, pull somebody else in to say, here's what I'm doing.
Some accountability,
right?
Piece,
Can you just call me and just check on me every day? Like, just check on me, see if I'm reading in the Bible, right? And I think those would be the four things I would say.
Yeah. So I want to echo and just support the number 3 and the number 4. I love number 1 and 2. They're exactly right. Have a plan and follow it. And the third one with the idea of having a notebook or something. One of the pieces that I think, maybe this is new to you. Maybe you're not like a consistent Bible reader. You're inconsistent, or maybe you've not tried to read the Bible through in 1 year. Here's what you're going to experience. When you get into the grind of it and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing, caution yourself, guard your heart against the idea that this is just becoming a chore. Because you can read 4 chapters in the McShane version and crank them out and mark your sheet and move forward and not let it impact you. And there's no point. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So having that notebook there beside you, and I would encourage you not just to have it to say, I don't know what this means, but to even, like you said, prior to these 4 pieces, write a little devotional. Have a prayer time. Incorporate how am I going to apply what I just read into my daily life. Otherwise, you're just reading words and checking off a box. And the fourth thing you said was...
pull somebody in.
Have the accountability piece. Yeah. And I'll tell you what I'm excited to announce that we're going to start doing is in our services here at Mount Moriah, we're going to use our public reading time where we typically read a scripture and just have the Bible read out loud. Thank you, Nehemiah, for teaching us to do that. But we're going, as we do that, I think this year we're going to try to have some consistency that says, hey, here was something that was read this week. Hey, are you still doing that? And kind of try to bring that accountability into the congregational setting. But I encourage you to do what you said, to have a interpersonal accountability.
Yeah, so I mean, even our life groups could even follow along with the Bible. Like the Bible reading plan, it's really simple. It's chronological this year. We're going to reference it a lot, and it's going to go along with our vision and direction for 2023. Now, we're not changing anything from our church. We're still a church that loves God, loves people, makes disciples.
Absolutely.
How do we make disciples, right? And so we're going to gather, we're going to grow, we're going to give, and we're going to go. That's our covenant. Those things are going to be the same. But the vision for the sermon series and in our teaching is going to be the gospel. You're like, hey, cool. A church is going to talk about the gospel. Yeah. Every sermon this year is going to see where do we see the gospel chronologically in the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and go through it that way, but do it chronologically. Where is the gospel in this moment in the biblical narrative, right?
Yes.
And I want to say this. On our Wednesday nights, we're going to start looking at how do we share our faith? What is the gospel? How do we share it? How do we have conversations about it? And then within a 5-mile radius of our church, we want to have gospel conversations with the folks that live around us, right? So we want to be very intentional about the gospel this year. The Bible can be summed up, I think, in one word: redemption, right? It is God's plan of redemption, and he reveals it to us today in 2022. And so we're going to focus on the gospel. Now that sounds, obvious, but there are churches that do other things for their sermons that are more, I would say, self-help, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more things like that. But we really want to be intentional this year about the gospel. How do we share it? Where do we find it? what's the story of the Bible, right? And so that's where we're headed.
And not just, this is an interesting story about, a guy who got his hair caught while he was riding a horse.
Yeah, the goal is we're not going to use the word story, right?
Yeah.
This is not a story. This happens to real people, real life, real time.
And how does the gospel message weave into all
Yeah.
that is a really cool.
That's the goal, right?
I
think this is our biggest kind of series. It's going to be 52 weeks of the gospel, and where do we find it, and how do we pull that out? Where do we see it, right, in Scripture? So that's where we're headed.
Cool.
For 2023. Really excited about that. That's our direction. This moment in the podcast, Ryan Allan.
Right now,
you have some things you thought about, and
I do.
You want to kind of talk about.
Yeah,
so let's do it.
We started, the chit chat session at the very beginning. We were talking a little bit about our Christmas, and it's a wonderful time to give presents, and people do that. And I got the hookup this year with regard to the kitchen. So I love cooking. I am a big fan. When I married my wife, hey, we hit 20 years this
Yeah, you
year.
did.
I know. You just we just celebrated your 20th. I'm about 6 months away from it. Anyway, when we got married, we made a deal. And I said, I enjoy cooking. I enjoy doing that whole thing. And she said, I do not. And and I said, I don't enjoy cleaning. And she said, I'll pick that up. If we can have a partnership, like
nice.
let's.
So you
that was basically why we got married.
Yeah. You're like, hey, I need to find a woman
that's right. We'll clean up after me, and I'll cook for her. And so anyhow,
awesome.
it has worked well for 20 years.
Yeah.
So for now, I feel like I'm taking the next step in my culinary journey. I've transcended. I've transcended. I'm going to a new level where I am like thoughtful about what I mentioned this to my brother-in-law the other day, like what I'm going to do when I retire, and that's 15, 20 years away, from real retirement from my career. But I'm looking at a food truck in the eye.
Nice.
I'm thinking about moving down that direction, and right now I'm honing my skills. I got a lot of kitchen gadgets and apparatus for Christmas, and I'm just super excited to be cooking and to be doing it. I've got my Blackstone is my baby right now. I've got a Weber Smoky Mountain smoker that we've talked a lot about smoking meat on here. I'm really in that groove right now and loving that. So my one of my questions for you is how was your Christmas? What did you get gifts? Did you give good gifts?
Yeah, I think Christmas was good. I really wanted one book this year, and I got it. I'm going to talk more about it at the end, but it's called Be Thou My Vision.
Okay.
And it is, I'm really excited about it.
Nice.
And that's kind of, I'll plug it there, and then at the end I'll kind of
come back
bring more. But I got to really just giving gifts this year was really cool. And Braden got a lot of cool things that he really put on his list, and Emma the same. But we're kind of moving more towards like we want to experience things as a family, and so a lot of our things are now experience driven, and so Braden's still 9, so he still gets like the toys, the things.
Yes. I'm still 9.
But yeah, so
if that's the measure, I'm very much like the toys. I want the things. But I did get my daughter an experience. I'm going to take her to a concert this year that didn't happen until February, and so she was super excited about that.
Yeah,
that's a fun gift. My brother and sister, my brother-in-law and sister, are caught up in the Southwest mix. I don't know. I mean, everybody who's in America probably knows about the airline situation that's going on now. They were supposed to fly to El Paso, got to Houston, and were stuck. So they rented a car and drove 10 hours to El Paso, where their luggage was.
No thanks.
So their luggage got there, but they couldn't get on. I don't know.
Crazy.
It is crazy. 10 hours.
That's kind of like the Arizona trip we took last year.
It
was like, hey, let's rent cars and just drive an entire vacation.
Yeah, we were supposed to fly into Phoenix, but we could only get one into Vegas. Yeah. And you're like, they're out there in the West somewhere.
Driving in the West is different than driving in Kentucky. Like you can get to where we want in like an hour or less here, but to get anywhere in the West, like they didn't live next to each other.
No.
Like everything is so stinking spread out.
Yeah. And
I think we put like 1,200 miles on our rental cars.
Crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Crazy.
And my sister's enduring that right now with the But that was a big Christmas gift. The reason I say that is because that was their big gift. They were going to go on a vacation. It was their experience. So, all right. So as we are rounding 2023, I thought it would be interesting, or rounding the corner, looking at 2023, to talk about the biggest events that happened in 2022. Like the listener, this is the end. Like this is the last podcast.
This is it for 2022.
For 2022. So I thought it would be interesting, maybe to have a debate or whatever, to say what were the biggest events globally, nationally, locally, in the year 2022. Let's start with the world, the global world. Things that are maybe in contention.
Yeah.
The Summer Olympics happened. Or, excuse me, no, Winter Olympics happened back in February. No, I think that's like everybody's like, really? That was this year? So I don't think it's going to win.
It came and went.
Yeah. Summer Olympics, but those come every 4 years, so that's a rarity.
Yeah.
But they were just kind of, I didn't even remember that happened.
Now, thinking back, I don't think anything stood out to me.
I don't remember anything if it did. I watched it. I liked watching the Olympics, but another piece that's in contention is the FIFA World Cup.
That's a big
huge
one.
thing, right? Yeah. It's the largest watched event in the world, literally in history, and with Messi winning it all, and that whole storyline was very, very cool.
Yeah, I'm still Team Ronaldo. Sorry,
I know, but nonetheless, that's in contention. The Queen died.
Yes,
globally,
and we still drink sweet tea in Kentucky. No, I feel bad that someone died. Yes, and she was she was a queen for 80 years.
Yes,
a long time.
Long time. And it was a global event. Everybody,
we still won the Revolutionary War.
We did.
Sorry.
No doubt about it.
You have to throw it in there with the Queen. Sorry.
Do you?
I think so.
Okay, fair enough. Now, and in not fourth place, but another piece that maybe is in. I think I'm going in reverse order. COVID. Can't deny that it was still a major.
Still around,
I think we hit 500 million cases in 2022, and still on the rise.
I think the world is dealing with it worse now than what we are. Right?
I agree.
We're still dealing with it, but I think it's worse in those third world countries. So that kind of thing.
And my opinion of the biggest event globally, is Russia invading Ukraine.
Yeah, it's dominated. Yeah, since what, February?
February is when they invaded. Yeah, and I think that has just been that war has. I think it will on some level define the year.
Yeah, I think so. And wasn't the president of Ukraine, wasn't he like man of the year?
Yeah, I don't know
on something.
I'm sure that wouldn't surprise me.
We just voted for a bill. The United States, the Congress, just passed a spending bill that has a ton of stuff for Ukraine. As far as weapons and money, I want to say like $43 billion. But yeah, that's a big one.
That was
for global. So those are good global. Nationally, what's going on nationally?
So I mean, we could get into politics, and I don't. This really isn't what this podcast is designed for. But the you got it, the immigration issue. And, all the stuff that's happening in Texas and the border and all that stuff. It kind of dominates the headlines. I think weather has been a big deal. I think for us locally, that's going to take the cake at the state level. Natural disasters. But I do think that the biggest event that happened nationally was the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Oh yeah. That's the biggest. I think,
and especially from our lens on this podcast. I was in Washington, D.C. not long after that event happened this summer, and the protests and the things that carried on. It was really a divisive thing, and it has trickled down, to the state level or to wherever it may be. But it was, I think that's a pretty memorable event that happened nationally. For our country. You agree?
Yeah, I think the statistics since 1973 until when it was before we eradicated it, I guess. I want to say it's 63 million. Yeah, 63.5 million abortions since 1973. That's 63 million more plus lives, right, that have been lost because of a law. And then through prayer, through the intervention of God and voters, it has been overturned, and it's now at the state level to decide, each state for themselves what they're going to do with abortion and how they're going to kind of either allow it or disallow it. So yeah, I think that's huge. That's nationally, that would be the biggest thing for me.
I mean, there are. I went through the global. I listed 5 things, and for the national one, I didn't. But I know we're kind of running long on time. But I think that if we're going to pick one, and then I won't even list many for Kentucky. I will just say that I think that the natural disasters that Kentucky endured this year, with the hurricane,
flooding in eastern Kentucky,
with the tornado
in Mayfield,
and the flooding, that was. Gosh, your heart just breaks for those families that, one of our deacons here, his mom lives in Mayfield, and he spent not quite 2 months.
Yeah.
He works for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and was on a project over there in his hometown.
Yeah.
And just the devastation that these people are enduring is, still going on. That's not something that you can just
they're still recovering from it.
Right. I'd say pretty big. We argued a little bit about Kentucky Derby and the things that happen in Kentucky, and those are, perennial things that always go on. But I think that the natural disasters that hit Kentucky this year were pretty big.
I think shortly behind that would be Jeff Brom coming back to Louisville. It's going to be huge, right?
No
Go
doubt.
Look at the recruiting class. I mean,
Louisville, the University of Louisville's basketball program with the win. Now we've got 2 or 3,
2 or 3 wins now.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of moving in the right direction. Last night, I was on Twitter during the Kentucky game.
Oof.
I guess I haven't been following Calipari, but people are like, $51 million buyout's not that bad.
Yeah,
they want to get rid of him.
I know.
It's an 8-3 record. They're not.
Well, now 8-4. They lost last night.
But come on.
I know. I'm in agreement. But I mean,
but here's the thing.
So the human measure of it.
Here's
success.
what I'd say. But for Calipari, his coaching mentality, the way he runs the program is one and dones.
Yep.
That is really hard to sustain. And I've said it since the beginning. It's the hardest way to coach.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I think Cal's a pretty good coach. And if he didn't have that mindset, he can build a program. But he has that mindset, and the measure of and 2, I don't care who, if you're Cal or you're the most, he's probably the most famous coach in America. It doesn't matter. The Kentucky Faithful's measure of success is national championship.
Yeah, you got to win it every year.
I mean, you got to win a national championship.
And then Louisville now is I would say equal opposite is
make the tournament.
Let's just be patient, right? And he's building a program, right? He's doing his thing. It's his first year coach, right? He's a Louisville boy. He is as local as you can get. And fans are 50-50. Let's just be patient. And then other fans are like, why are we doing this? So, but again,
but there's a lot of little jump ship on the old Cal train.
It was bad on Twitter. When somebody wrote $51 million buyout, 51 or 52 million buyout, doesn't sound that bad. I'm like, that's insane.
Here's what I heard, though. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't done the research. Someone just told me this. He has a lifetime contract, which doesn't mean that he will always be the coach.
Yeah.
His lifetime contract. Right. I think if he's not the coach, he becomes the AD.
Yeah, he's connected to Kentucky somehow,
for life.
Some way. Yeah,
is the way I understand it.
Here's
that could be wrong.
Here's
I'm not going to throw that out there.
To Kentucky, the university as a whole, suckers. I mean, look, he earned it.
Yeah,
and he got it.
Yeah,
and man.
Yeah,
but now you're stuck.
Yep.
Shoo. All right. As we end this podcast, I want to share some things, and you can jump in. For the podcast moving forward, I want to do some things this year, this coming season. I guess season 4, right?
Okay.
But I want to use a book, Concise Theology by J.I. Packer. It is a page and a half for each theological topic. And I want to use that in each podcast. I'll read it for the week. You can read. You have a copy too. Read it for that first topic will be the next podcast. That's going to be kind of the title. And we'll just break it down. We'll talk about it. We'll see, where we are as a local church, that kind of thing.
So, faithful listener, grab yourself a copy of Concise Theology.
I think it's like $13-14. It's not expensive. And it's a very easy read.
Yeah.
The next book I'm going to be reading for me is The Holiness of God by R.C. Sproul. It is good. It's up there with J.I. Packer's A Quest for Godliness. But Holiness of God, R.C. Sproul. I've read it multiple times. I'm going to continue to do that this year. Then the book I mentioned earlier is Be Thou My Vision. Now, Be Thou My Vision is a personal, you can use it for family devotional. It's 31-day devotional. Now, I said steer clear of devotionals.
As your replacement for reading the Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is not a devotional as in like I'm reading someone else's quiet time with God. This is a devotional that says start with a song, start with a psalm, start with a passage, and then it moves into different liturgical things in each day. With that, at the end of the book, Appendix number 1 is the McShane reading plan. So you're plugging those 4 chapters into your daily liturgical moment. So it's a daily time of worship for you or your family, that kind of thing.
Love it.
And then appendices like 2 or 3, it is the Westminster Catechism, and it is another shorter catechism that says basically kind of the same things as Concise Theology. Who is God? Who is man? What is the Bible? What is the church? That kind of thing. And I'm going to plug that into each day. So that's the goal. But Concise Theology, Be Thou My Vision, those are the 2 big ones. And then Holiness of God is kind of what I'll be focusing on, along with mapping out the sermons for where do we find the gospel.
The gospel.
Yeah.
The thread that weaves it all
It's
together.
a lot. So yeah, a lot of it is going to go back to the gospel. I want to read a passage from Revelation. As I feel like I'm done.
Yeah.
But if you want to add anything to this, Revelation 22 verse 12. This is the words of Jesus to John as he's seeing these visions for Revelation, as Jesus is revealing, what's about to happen. And he says, "Behold, I am coming soon, bringing my recompense with me to repay each one for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end." Like Jesus himself says to John, "I'm coming soon." And he says to the readers of 2022, "I'm coming soon." And so we want to do everything we can here locally to await his return and to also share the good news about
that it's coming.
Yeah. That's it.
I love it, Ryan, and I love you, and I'm grateful that you let me be on your podcast with you. And I just want to kind of close things out with telling our listeners, I pray for you. I don't know your names, and I don't know who you are, but I often think of you and pray over you, and that wherever you are in your walk of life, be it in Canada, where our 1% of listeners are, or right here in Kentucky and you're local, I think about you, and I pray that you are using your God-given talents to share, to love on people, to love God, and to make this world a better place. I think that if we look at the culture around us, that you can pretty easily and quickly get depressed with the path and the direction that things are going. But I choose a different path. I choose joy, and I choose to know that I'm a child of God, and I choose to know that his son is returning, and I choose to know that here in my local church I can find like-minded people and continue to praise God and worship God, and I pray that you are as well. Love you guys. Love you, Ryan, and
thanks, man.
Happy 2022.
Love God.
Love people.
Make disciples. It's like 80s.
It's like, yeah, it is. Very synthesizer.
I feel like it's 80s.
Very Stranger Things.